Hey, Pat McCardle back for another episode of Shop Talk, where today it's all about Polaris Government Defense. Stay tuned for more. All right, so as the American power sports company, Polaris prides itself on the durability and toughness in everything we do. And that includes, the manufacturing, that includes the design, that includes the testing, and even, where these vehicles could get used around the world. As you think about it, we started our defense business about 20 plus years ago, coming out of the aftermath of 9/11 with the original MV700 ATV. Over time, that one's been upgraded as a Sportsman XP platform came up to the new MV850 that we know and love today. We've also dabbled in some Rangers over the years. We introduced the diesel version of the MRAZR, kind of the predecessor to this Alpha, almost a decade ago now. We came out with a Dagger vehicle that's a bit wider, a bit longer. It's a much bigger platform and can carry up to 9 occupants. And the latest in the lineup for the military team is this MRAZR Alpha sitting next to me today. So we're going to take a little more time and talk about this MRAZR Alpha that's sitting next to me. But I think one of the cool things for you guys to know is that we actually assemble these up at our Roseau, Minnesota facility, the home of Polaris. So if you go back, 70 years ago when Polaris was started, that's actually the location we build this thing in northern Minnesota, just a few miles off the border. Really cool facility, but we actually built a dedicated line to build these MRAZRs up there. And the neat thing about it, if you guys saw the episode we did on the factory race machine, we actually now build those on that line as well because they're some of the most specialized vehicles we build in relatively low production volumes. So we've got a highly dedicated staff that's trained up to be able to do that and handle that wide variety of parts and relatively slower line rates. So they have a lot more tack time. They have a lot more jobs they each need to do to be able to put these specialized vehicles together. Every time we get done with a production run and get ready to deliver, the military, they actually send some folks up to take a look at them and make sure we're meeting the quality and durability standards that they're looking for on every batch that goes out the door. Now, I think the next thing we want to talk to you guys about are what are some of the parts on this that are the same as what you'd find on a regular RZR. And that really starts off on the front end of this rig. Now, if you look from a styling perspective, you'll notice a lot of this bodywork is exactly the same as what you see on a RZR, right? Front fenders, the flares, obviously painted a different color, or molded a different color. As you look in the front from a driveline perspective, the front drive on this and the rear drive, the rear diff, they're actually basically the same as what's in a RZR. The rear diff's a little bit different because it's unlockable on this MRZR, but from a mounting configuration, it's very, very similar to what we offer on other vehicles across the lineup. Now, if you look from a differences perspective, there's a few key ones that are obviously dramatically different than you can see from the outside. From an overall width of vehicle, this is way narrower than a Pro R. We actually narrow this thing up to 60 inches wide, and we put a collapsible roll cage so that we can drop this down so it'll fit in a V-22 helicopter for air transport. So not only is this machine capable of doing a lot of work, you can actually drop it out of the sky down into a field and be able to put it back together, fire it up, and roll on with whatever mission the team is doing. Obviously we've got a lot of labels on here for people that maybe didn't grow up riding side by sides. Where do you tie it down? What type of fuel do you put in the tank? Because this thing is, a diesel or a heavy fuel vehicle. So it can run diesel, it can run JP8, those types of fuels that the military is used to. As we keep coming back, obviously we talked about that narrowed up suspension. It's also got the ability to adjust the ride height a couple inches. So being that we're inside and we don't want to fire up the engine in this particular room, we're not going to show it moving up and down. Now, obviously roll cage is completely different. Interior layout is very similar, but when we get back to the back of this machine, there is a ton of things that are different in the back. So we've got a turbo powered diesel engine in this thing. It's got like an 8-speed planetary automatic, so similar to what you'd find in maybe like a transit van over in Europe. It's got 24-volt exportable power as well. So when you want to be able to run, a laptop or comms gear, you've got the ability to plug in on the side of this rear rack and be able to power that right off the battery that's on this machine. There's also the ability to upgrade that from a 1 kilowatt to a 5 kilowatt system so that if you need to run bigger things like LiDAR or other equipment, you can do that. But I think one of the coolest things when you think about lighting on this vehicle is that when you want to be able to operate this thing at night, obviously we got the headlights on right now. The gauge backlighting is all lit up on this rig, but there's one switch that you can flip that will put this thing into blackout mode. And what that does is it drops all white lighting. So headlights off, tail lights off, backlighting on the gauges is off so that you can drive this thing with night vision goggles on. The other accessory you see sitting up here is actually an infrared light. And if I find the switch for that, turn that on, there's actually a cool little shop talk tip that I can give you that's going to be kind of handy for your television remote at home. So I've got my camera fired up, and if I hold up my TV remote and I press the button, you might be able to see that light blinking when I press it, telling me the batteries are good in my remote. And my eye can't see that infrared light, but my phone actually can when you've got the camera turned on. So if we come down and we look at this light, you'll see the same thing going on where it kind of glows, you know, a little purple or almost red. And that's because my phone can pick up that infrared light that the human eye can't actually see. But when you're wearing night vision goggles, it's a really handy technology to have to be able to see way out on the horizon and light up the night almost like it's daytime. So now let's talk about our government offering. There's a couple different areas that we cater to. So the first is local, state, and municipal agencies. So think of these as guys like the DNR, the BLM, parks departments, you know, things that you might find in your own community where we're gonna sell, you know, kind of a standard off-the-shelf vehicle. Then the other part that we have are these specialty vehicles where we've got stuff set up for police, fire, as well as fire and rescue. And we've got this awesome fire machines in the shop today. So as we start at the front of this, you see things like this built-in accessory rack that comes with this. Now these are validated right from Polaris with all this stuff on them so that when you get it, you know, you write out one order, one invoice, you're calling direct to Polaris, we're selling, we're also gonna offer after-sales support. So we're probably the only OEM out there that's gonna be doing that and being able to sell and service right to you. Obviously you can see the side marker lights here. We've got the huge light bar up on top. We'll show you that in a minute. You know, there's a PA system out front along with sirens. And one of the coolest things is this awesome QTAC unit on the back. So a couple highlights of this one, you know, it's capable of holding 75 gallons of water, 2.5 gallons of foam. You can put a Viper nozzle on it. It's got an electric cord reel, so it's really easy to pull back in when you're done. Now, I think one of the other things that's interesting is if you're used to the controls in a Ranger, the nice thing is that this is capable of, you know, the same off-road durability and ruggedness that you're used to. But if you're an emergency services personnel, you know, it's got really familiar controls for you too as well. So things like a PA system, how's it going, Shop Talk? We're here for you. As well as the lighting control from Federal Signal here, where, you know, you can flip this on to the different configurations that you're used to depending on the scenario that you're gonna be in. So overall, you've got familiar Ranger controls from this awesome XD 1500 platform. So this is gonna give you a capable machine for off-road firefighting. You know, if you set it up differently, you could get a fire and rescue or police. And it's also gonna give you familiar user controls if you're in those emergency services personnel. All right, so we took you through the Polaris Government Defense business in this episode. We showcased the awesome MRAZR Alpha, as well as this Ranger XD 1500 set up for off-road firefighting. As the American Power Sports Company, we want to give a huge thanks to our American heroes, including those in the military as well as first responders. That's it for this episode of Shop Talk. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. Let us know what you want to see next time.